Hello, welcome back to A Safe Place, a podcast where we discuss school gun violence and how to keep kids safe in schools. I am your host, Louis Aponte, and I'm the author of the upcoming books, A Safe Place, How to Prevent the Next School Shooting, and the Ultimate U.S. School Shooting Reference Guide. Thank you for joining me today. Today's episode 11. I am thrilled to welcome back children's author and former Reserve Law Enforcement Officer, Claire Marie. Welcome back, Claire. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me again. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. And as I was mentioning before, happy Halloween.
Yes, happy Halloween.
Can't believe we're already towards the end of this year already. It's flying by so quickly.
Yeah.
So I've been following you on your adventures on social media, especially LinkedIn, and I must say you and Sammy the Sasquatch have been incredibly busy lately. What's been going on with you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we've been in so many schools.
Uh-huh.
Um, and we really have done a lot of work in Oregon. We've been in rural Oregon. We've been in frontier regions in Oregon, and we've also been in big urban areas. So we've just been traveling all over the state and having
Okay.
so much fun working with kids and community safety partners in schools.
I must say you look amazing for somebody who's been traveling as much as you have. I mean, I've been watching all these partnerships that you have and all these different schools and these community members you've been meeting with. You seem very calm and relaxed. I think I'd be exhausted with like $50 bags underneath my eyes. So I'm impressed with how you're balancing everything.
Thank you. It takes a lot of focus, but you gotta make it happen.
So I understand you have something, a new development with Sammy the Sasquatch, is going to be converted into a new language.
Yes, yeah. So Sammy the Sasquatch has been translated into Spanish.
That's
We're
exciting.
super excited. Yeah, it's in some consumer review processes now. And then we'll get it out, to check rounds of publishing. And then it should be available, hopefully, fingers crossed, in the next month or so.
All
And
right.
once we rolled that out, we're actually going to be publishing an activity book that goes along with Sammy the Sasquatch Welcome to Crittertopia. It'll be called Sammy the Sasquatch Adventures in Safety.
Nice. How nice. I remember in one of your posts, you said you had some partnerships with law enforcement officers that were speaking both English and in Spanish. So during your travels, has that been a demand too? Is that why you published in Spanish because you've seen a demand for that language as well?
Oh, absolutely. It's super important, that the law enforcement officers that come to work with us in the schools also represent the community.
Okay.
And a lot of the schools that we work in, Spanish is a language that's commonly spoken.
Of
We want
course.
to make sure that there's equitable access to the information. And
Mhm.
so, one of the things that our law enforcement partners can help bring to the table is individuals who speak English and Spanish. So that's been really important to us. We just want to be more equitable in accessing this information.
That's excellent. That's been one of my professional development goals as well. On the library's website, we have this database called Mango Languages, and I'm trying to learn Spanish for librarians. And so I understand what you mean as far as how important it is to make it more equitable in terms of access. So recently, I noticed online you posted a picture of the Baker School District tabletop exercise, and you wrote, "This is what it looks like when a community invests in creating a school culture of safety and security." Can you tell me what happened there?
Oh yeah. So we, in addition to Sammy the Sasquatch work, Flux Consulting, which is the company that I own that puts out Sammy the Sasquatch, Sammy and Friends. We also do really focused support on K-12 school safety and emergency management. And so one of those things that we do is running tabletop or even full scale exercises for schools. And
Mhm.
a part of that process is making sure that it's not just school districts and school staff that are at the table, but it's community partners as well.
Okay.
Um, we want to make sure that we build those relationships before emergencies happen
Mhm.
and that we are building connection within establishing those relationships so that when the emergencies do occur, regardless of what they are, they've got channels of communication established, collaboration, and coordination, because those are some of the most important things and the things that go out the door very quick when we have emergency incidents. So we want to test those systems.
That's so excellent. And when you say community partners, are you talking about like first responders, law enforcement? Like who else is involved in the community partnership?
Yeah, so it's always going to be law enforcement, fire, emergency medical services, county emergency management.
Hmm.
Uh, and then it could be local hospital systems, always as much as we can, local mental health partners. The tabletop exercise we did recently with Baker School District was actually focused on an incident occurring on the railroad. So we had
Hmm.
Union Pacific partners come as well, which was just a huge opportunity for us. So it's going to be, yes, some solid community partners that we always want at the table. And then sometimes we get creative depending on the threat or hazard that we're focusing on.
Okay. Wow, that's really impressive. When you hear about hoax active shooter threats, how is your message helping students deal with their own fears when it comes to a lockdown event? Because I know Sammy the Sasquatch helps them, deal with it in a more, calm way. But sometimes, you'll have people calling the school, making, threats that, that are not real. How do you prepare them emotionally for that?
Yeah. So we call them, they're called swatting calls. They were very common last year. And,
Hmm.
I unfortunately I have to say that I think they're going to be occurring again this year. We watched them kind of as a wave coming across the states. And you could, anyways, law enforcement could trace them to some common area code numbers and those sorts of things. But regardless, law enforcement should and always and does take those swatting calls seriously because we need to until we have situational awareness that tells us otherwise.
Right.
Um, Part of helping kids to handle swatting calls in a healthy way is we teach them, it doesn't matter if it's a drill or if it's a real lockdown.
Right.
What matters is that you know what to do to keep yourself safe when our day goes from normal to not so normal. And so we talk about how the school does lots of stuff all day long to help keep them safe. They do stuff all day long that helps to keep them safe.
Hmm.
And within that, when we get to do cool new things like go to school, we learn extra new safety stuff. And part of that is how are we safe together in our buildings? And so it's really just that it doesn't matter if it's quote unquote real or not real. We need to stay calm, not panic, and take it seriously and be responsible big kids. And the other thing that we talk about is our brains are super cool. It's what we tell them. And our brains are so creative and they can think of lots of different things, like telling us stories about, like magical unicorns and purple puppies and all these different things, right?
Right.
But sometimes when our brain thinks that when we're scared, sometimes our brains will do what ifs that are kind of scary. And it'll keep doing kind of these what ifs that are scary. And you know what we have to do? We have to say, oh my goodness, brain, I see that you're really trying to keep me safe and you are doing such a good job. But I remember what I have to do right now. And all I have to do is a lockdown. And so we just help them understand that our brains will do these things. Here's what we can do when our brain does these things. And here's the safety mechanism that we can go back to. So that way, and they know that helpers are coming and we talk about all those different things
Right.
when we're in the classroom. So it really helps to settle the kiddo as well.
That's so excellent, and I love your energy when you do that. If I was a student, I'm like, okay, yeah, no worries, I got this. It's like you've anticipated it. It's to be expected. It's nothing to be afraid of. I love the energy that you're projecting out there. I can see you've been doing this hundreds, if not thousands, of times. So that's wonderful.
Thank you.
So, can I ask you, have in your journey since we last met in April, have any of the lawmakers or school administrators like reached out to you for advice in relation to lockdown drills? I mean, I know you're doing the community tabletop exercises, but for those that have not had the chance to know who you are and what you offer, what advice would you offer them?
We've worked with a lot of school administrators. We haven't really worked with any folks, in any legislatures around this specific topic.
Hmm.
Um, but I would just stress to them the importance of having a whole school community approach when it comes to any emergency drill, but especially lockdown drills, and
Hmm.
to do it in trauma informed ways. Whether they use Sammy and Friends or whether they design their own trauma informed approach,
Right.
it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that you have a trauma informed approach that includes and involves the entire school community. So that's parents, families, caregivers in the home. That's, community safety partners like law enforcement, fire, EMS. That's all staff at the school, not just classroom staff, and then students, of course, right? And making sure that it's accessible, equitably accessible for students and or staff that have access, functional needs, or disabilities. So just make sure that it's trauma informed. Sammy and Friends is here to help. If you can design and want to design your own, that's fantastic. You don't have to use Sammy and Friends, but please make it trauma informed.
That's excellent. I noticed that there seems to be a consistent message that you post on, your social media posts. For example, recently I noticed on LinkedIn you said the capacity for peers to support each other following a traumatic experience is a great resource to have embedded in all law enforcement agencies. Is this something that you're seeing? Well, it seems like you have a really good partnership going on, but are you seeing this being adapted more often in schools, or is that strictly just for first responders, or are you seeing this more community? Concept as far as having everybody involved becoming more what's the word recognized and realized, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Peer support is a common thing in law enforcement, becoming a more common thing in law enforcement. It's a really important system and program to have established within law enforcement agencies. I can't say that there's one that I know of that's specific to school violence or school emergency incidents for kids, but
Mhm.
there is a evidence-based program called Sources of Strength. I don't do work in it, but I absolutely love it.
Okay. And
It's
what is that? Sources of strength?
Sources of Strength. Yep. If you Google
Hmm.
Sources of Strength, it should pop up as one of your first options. And that's a phenomenal program that I think should be in every single school. It's a
Hmm.
resilience building program that's designed really to be an upstream intervention for suicide. So, excuse me, upstream prevention for suicide. So it teaches kids to ask for help early and often in little things and in big things. And they also, so the elementary school, they have a curriculum that they use in the classroom. And then middle and high school are peer-led groups. So that's that peer part, right? Building that partnership between the kids in the schools. And then they have what are called adult advisors. So they're there to help guide the kids down the path.
Okay.
Um, and it's a really phenomenal program. So if schools are interested in something like that, I would just encourage them to Google Sources of Strength and look into it.
By chance, you don't happen to know how long have they been around? You know, how long have they? I mean, have they been able to measure the results over any extended period of time?
I'm sorry, I don't know the details of that.
Okay.
I know that they are at least evidence informed. I believe evidence based. They're part of what's something called the Big Six in Oregon. There are
Mhm.
six. It might have grown at this point, but originally it was six programs identified within Oregon that are evidence based and serve as prevention, intervention, or postvention for suicide.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so Google Sources of Strength and or
Will
the Big
do.
Six in Oregon and has a lot of great information. And they also have a bunch of free resources on their website. And quite honestly, uh, for the cost that it is, it's pretty low cost. I believe it's under
Mm.
$1,000 a year for schools to do it. So it's not a
No, that's
huge cost.
great. Thank you so much for that resource because it's such an important trait I think to develop from a very young age, something that you can carry into adulthood in terms of managing your emotions, emotional intelligence. You know, I know you don't know this or not, but today is the 1 year anniversary that my stepsister committed suicide, and she was a special needs teacher, and so that's something that adults deal with. I can only imagine what children go through in terms of trying to deal with like emotions when they turn into teenagers and they have all these hormones and these new relationships that they've never experienced before. And so, yeah, great tool to have. Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
What are some of the more? I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, of course.
What are some of the most common concerns and thoughts that parents share with you, during your travels to Sammy and school lockdowns?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that comes up, and it's not as frequent as you would think. I would say the most common thing is that parents and caregivers are nervous and anxious about their kids participating in lockdown drills. The biggest thing is when parents just hard stop. Nope, my kid will not be there. My kid will not participate. Do not speak to my kid about lockdown. Do not say that word to them.
Really?
Um, they can, yes. Oh, yeah. And so we faced that with a school that we were going into when they announced. And the parent reached out. She was very kind. She had a kindergartner, and she was like, you know what? She said, here's all the research that I think shows that kids should not do this, and there's no benefit. And the school staff engaged in a conversation with them based on the support with Sammy and friends. And they said, oh my gosh, we hear you. And here, let me help you understand that we don't do active shooter drills.
Right.
And so a lot of what that parent was not understanding was the difference between active shooter drills and lockdown drills, which
Right.
active shooter drills are a great thing that law enforcement should do when
Right.
children are not present on campus. And then it's okay to let staff volunteer, but never require them. And so that's a specific threat or hazard. A lockdown drill is just a function. It's an action that we practice just like evacuation
Hmm.
when we
Hmm.
do a fire drill.
Yes.
So we talked about that. And then we also talked about what our approach was going to be in building up to this lockdown drill, which is, I mean, we start 8 weeks before we are in the school. We start working with the school.
Wow.
We start looping in parents and families 2 weeks before we're in with information. We start looping in the class 2 weeks before we are in with information. And we actually, pointed her to some resources and articles that I had written that helped her understand how could she have this conversation with her kid at home? Because
Right.
I understand they want to protect their children, of course, right? And this is scary when you think about why they might be going into the lockdown drill. I understand that, but we have got to prepare them for the world that they are in today.
Right.
And part of that world today is lockdown drills. And it does not mean, we tell this to kids, it does not mean that someone is here to harm you. We don't put that forth, but usually kids will ask something about, well, what if the bad person comes to school? And so we say, you know what, just because we're in a lockdown drill, it does not mean that someone's here to harm you. It means
Right.
that one of our school staff or teachers noticed that our day went from normal to not normal. And their job is to just increase our level of safety and security in the school so we can have a little bit of time to figure out what the not normal thing is that's going on.
Right.
And so we talk with parents about that. We talk with them. How do you have this conversation starting at home, building up to this event in the classroom? And we talk about normalizing safety. And that is one of the biggest things because parents don't realize often that, and kids either, that they do stuff every single day, all day long that helps them be safe, right?
Right.
And
Yeah,
so when you
absolutely.
start to normalize, like you do safety stuff all day long, it makes doing a safety thing a lot less scary.
Right, right. And that's so valuable. I love that you're preparing them before school even starts and helping to educate them because I imagine you probably have a lot of assumptions like that where they just have preconceived notions as far as what it is that you may or may not be doing. I mean, I have that with my own book. I have some people giving me hate mail on Facebook. They're like, I will not comply. I will not comply. I'm like, comply with what? What do you, I don't understand. What are you talking about? The book's not even out yet. Like, what are you objecting to? Like, really? So I think that's wonderful that you're educating them ahead of time. So yeah, tell me, Claire, what is the next journey with Sammy the Sasquatch? I know you have the Spanish version coming out, and do you have anything else coming out? I think you said something about an activity book.
Yes, so we have the activity book that we'll publish after the book publishes in Spanish, and then we are also rolling out to a massive school district soon. Well, Sammy will be up and running. She's already up and running in a lot of schools, but she's going to
Mhm.
be up and running in 58 schools in a metropolitan area very soon. So
Holy cow! Like,
yeah,
wait, 58 schools. Does that mean you're going to 58 schools, or how are you doing that?
no, no. My dream, my goal, so with the Sammy and Friends approach is to do, we have what's called a train the coach model. It's a 2-day approach that trains school and school serving staff how to go and do Sammy and Friends themselves. They get a Sammy, they get books, they get support material, manuals. So they go through a training session and then we spend a day supporting them, coaching in the classroom in person. So they're totally supported. We can train with 2 trainers, we can train 12 people. So, it's not a massive number that we can create coaches at a time, but in
Right.
order to build more capacity, because our goal is to embed the experience and expertise in the school. So they're not dependent on us.
Hmm.
Uh, we're there if you need help, but you guys got this once we train you.
Right.
And then we also have what's called a train the teammate approach, which is a 3-hour session that's designed to orient the rest of the school staff or a lot of other school staff members to what the Sammy and Friends approach is. So they're more familiar with it. They will not leave that session prepared to lead classroom coaching. It's just not designed that way. We don't have you can't take 75 people for 2 days from a school. It's just not possible. You can
Right.
get in 3 hours though. So we'll train 12 folks in the train the coach, and we'll train 75 folks in the train the teammate. And then they'll create teams within their school. And the teammates will go with the coaches into the classroom and they'll learn over time how to do classroom coaching in a more focused way. And then they'll feel comfortable eventually to do that classroom coaching themselves. And then they're going to have 75 plus 12, 5, 6, 7, 87 people that can do Sammy and Friends coaching in their schools. That's my
Mhm.
dream. I
That's
want to
wonderful.
support all schools to have a trauma informed approach. And so that's how we're rolling it out to so many.
That's really impressive. And then after they're trained, are they qualified to train other staff members as they get new, staff members or not?
No, that's not something we've designed at this
Okay,
point.
gotcha.
That's not to say that it's not like a dream of ours to build capacity for more training, to make
Right.
it more accessible. But right now, we just have the capacity to train coaches and teammates. Uh, Dreams someday to train more trainers.
I love that. I love that you're making it so that way they don't have to be so dependent on you, and they can be self-sufficient with this new knowledge that is fact-based or evidence-based. You said so that's great. Well, Claire, it's been such a pleasure having you here. And I don't know if you're going to be dressing up today for Halloween. Are you doing any school tours today?
I'm not. Sammy will put on a little outfit later and she'll
Oh,
post some stuff
nice.
on social media, but I'll just be answering the door, handing out some candy, and my bonus daughter, she'll probably head out to trick or treat. So
Okay, well, excellent. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me. If you have any future updates coming up, please, give me a call. I'd love to hear, more about what's going on. I'm just really impressed with how far you've grown and just how, effective you've been in your communities that you've been touching.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me again. I
Yeah,
love staying in touch.
my pleasure. All right, we'll see you soon.
Okay,
Take care.
bye.
Bye bye.